But first, sort of my story. So Nancy kind of shared a bit about it. So I went to this random school in the middle of Canada, or not middle, on the west coast of Canada, called the University of British Columbia, UBC. Some people think it's University of Berkeley, California. It's okay. But it's okay. And where's that, in Britain? No. So I was there. I graduated high school early. I skipped 2 grades in elementary school, 2 grades in high school. No, not because I'm a freak, but because I was kind of bored of going through the regular schedule of things, and then figured that if I could jump ahead, I should, and so I did. My parents, for the record, I know I'm Asian, and yes, I have the risk of having very traditional Asian parents. Fortunately, they weren't, and they actually told me, no, you shouldn't do it because it'll adversely affect your health or your social development. They were right, but I didn't really listen to them. But my story goes as follows. So I graduated college when I was 18. It was in May of '09, so that's sort of the time frame. And May of '09 was not the best time in the economy to be looking for a job, right? Probably the worst. And I kind of asked for it because I'm the one who decided to jump, right? My parents were like, well, you could have graduated in 2012. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And so instead, I was like, okay, well, I'm now looking for a job in a really shitty economy. But what about sort of doing something with my life where I don't end up being shoved into an account intern position in advertising, because apparently that was supposed to be sexy with the marketing degree that I got, but rather something that would be something that I could create myself. But here's sort of a little bit of a backstory. A lot of people don't know this, but no, I don't look that buff, and no, I did not look like that when I played hockey. I was a lot skinnier, but I actually did play ice hockey. I know it's very surprising because I don't look like I do, and you probably think that I got my ass kicked. I was kind of more of like the guy who was avoiding hits and kind of being slimy and going in between players and stuff like that. And yes, I did play checking, and I was right wing. But I used the past tense because I actually fractured my lower femur in a hit that looked a lot like this when I had graduated from college. And you're not supposed to break this bone, just so you guys know. Like, it's supposed to be like the biggest bone in your body. Like, it's not supposed to be broken, right? So when it breaks, that's a really bad thing. So I actually ended up being in a wheelchair for about 7 months. And that's actually when I started my own first business, because I was bored out of my mind, and I wanted to do something with my life without just moping around and being in a wheelchair. So I started my first web design business while I was in a wheelchair, and that's actually kind of why I'm standing here today. So I'm not telling you all to break your knee, but was what was the impetus for me to start my first business and get me addicted into web design. Here's another funny little history to also why I guess I'm who I am today. I actually went on an exchange to Singapore in my senior year. And I went to the National University of Singapore. Who here is planning to go on exchange or has gone on exchange already? Please put up your hand. It should be all of you. Honestly, going abroad is the best excuse to not do school for 6 months and actually get credits for it and then learn about the world while you're supposed to be in school. At Singapore, it was a pass-fail system, so it was awesome. I would basically go traveling and then show up and do what I needed to do to pass my exams. But what Singapore did was it actually, well, by the way, I chose Singapore. Why? It's the only country in Asia that has English as its first language, and because I'm actually really not that Asian, I don't speak any Asian languages, I decided to be lazy and choose Singapore. And so at the same time, however, I fell in love with traveling and sort of reaching abroad and sort of just knowing that the world is absolutely massive. I remember very distinctly this one moment when I was in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, or as many people know it as Saigon. I remember I was on the side of a street. You can't really cross the streets in Vietnam. It's actually kind of impossible. It's like playing real-life Frogger. So you have to really trust your gut and just do like this. And the locals tell you, don't like walk in a regular speed, because if you're irregular, they don't know how to avoid you. I was like, wow, that's kind of freaky. But anyways, I just realized that none of the people who were going back and forth, whizzing back and forth in their motorbikes gave a flying fuck about Foursquare or Facebook, right? And I realized the world's just so big that people actually don't care about that stuff. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there that's been waiting to be uncovered. So then I landed at Dig, and so there's a little bit of a middle story there, but I don't want to drag it out too long. I was at down in San Francisco for the first time in October of 2009. I decided to apply for, I didn't apply actually, so it's funny how life works. You kind of get what you don't really ask for. I went down there and I emailed a bunch of people, and that was to go and figure out what Silicon Valley was really like. Like, is it like, does it smell like Silicon when you go down there? Does everybody have chips that they're wearing? And like, I mean, how does this work? Do they make noises? But no, it was actually a very, very, almost, I can't really describe it in words, but when I landed there, I realized that it was a place that I needed to be because I didn't have to explain myself 15 times to tell someone what I'm actually doing, right? And so Dig finally went, you know, when I met with them, they're like, well, actually, kind of looks like you want a job. I was like, oh, I don't really know. I have my own little thing. I created this thingy called Follow Formation. It was like a Twitter thing. But then they're like, you should come down. And I was like, okay. And I moved down in January of 2010, and I got laid off 5 months later. I moved down 3 months later, actually, because my visa took 3 months to get approved because apparently all Canadians are terrorists. But here on the right-hand side is, again, one of the fun parts of being underage. This was the beer fridge at Dig, and it was very clear that no one should serve me any alcohol. So I got laid off in May, and I decided to go on a little bit of a self-discovery trip. I went traveling again, and then I came up with the idea for Keep, and it was based on this very simple premise that there was a ton of people playing games on their phone. That behavior is not going to reverse itself anytime soon, and I also realized that the banner ads on these things were absolute shit, and there had to be a better way to do it. And so I started thinking about new ways to interact with, you know, between brands and consumers, and then quickly realized that every single game on the planet has this one thing that people didn't really notice was a common thing across every single game on the planet. And that was the achievement. Every single game on the planet has achievements.